No matter what part of the world you hail from, odds are you've heard about the entity known as skinwalkers in some form or fashion of the word. For some, skinwalker is the word generally used to describe shape-shifting creatures found throughout both ancient and modern mythology, usually in the sense of a human being becoming an animal or other humanoid beast. For others, skinwalker is the word to signify the infamous Sherman Ranch in the southeast region of Ballard, Utah, where bizarre happenings have been reportedly seen since publicized in the 1970s. These events have involved rumors of paranormal activity, UFO sightings, alien encounters, and various rumors of shape-shifting beings as previously mentioned. However, most are unsure of where the term actually comes from, as the idea of skinwalkers has a very specific origin in the Southwest Territories of the United States, straight from the heart of Navajo Nation and the ancestral grounds occupied by the Navajo peoples for centuries. To shed some light on an otherwise mysterious topic, we wanted to make a short essay and explainer about skinwalkers, their general description, and their cultural origins as part of the Navajo lifestyle. Thus, we introduce to you skinwalkers, the Navajo witches of the Southwest. Before we actually begin, we want to make note that the topic of skinwalkers as they relate to the specific cultural artifact of the Navajo people is generally unknown, as most oral traditions of skinwalkers has been kept only within Navajo communities. Generally speaking, the Navajo have been careful about what they share with outsiders. This is not only considered protection from themselves from unhappy spirits, but also due to the topic's complicated history. You see, the Navajo believe understanding the true nature of skinwalkers is wholly dependent on the participation of real Navajo culture and the complex understanding of their lore and spirituality. Only those of the non-Navajo who have gained their utmost trust have learned of the skinwalkers from the experts themselves, and even these retellings have been few and far between. As such, the topic of skinwalkers is a sensitive subject for many, and has been improperly used in storytelling and entertainment over the last 100 years or so. The following essay will cover the legend as it has been presented to us through outside sources. We do not claim to be experts in the specific culture, but rather share these stories so that our audience may venture out and learn about these cultures and mythologies themselves to better understand their place in history. From the Navajo perspective, skinwalkers are masters of witchcraft with the power to transform into or possess the life force of animals. While these animals can range from any four-legged creature, they are most often seen in the form of coyotes, foxes, wolves, bears, mountain lions, and bighorn sheep. In addition to shapeshifting, skinwalkers would physically dress themselves in the actual skins of the animal of their choosing. Some have worn skulls fastened with fur or antlers on their heads, a method known to boost the power of the spirits that they possessed. Every skinwalker picks their animal based on the needs of the witch. Some needed sharp teeth and large claws, while others needed speed and agility to travel long distances in short times. Animals weren't only considered fodder for the skinwalker mythology, however. Some of the same animals often associated with the Navajo witchcraft were seen as sacred beings, a part of the culture at large. Examples include the gray wolf protector, or the endangered one, as well as the cougar protector, or the silent one. The difference between the spiritual protectors of the Navajo and those considered skinwalkers has to do with the interpretation of medicine and spirituality within the tribes themselves, specifically the harmful medicine practiced by certain individuals throughout the Navajo's history. The Navajo people are a part of the Pueblo tribes, one of a larger culture that includes other tribes, such as the Apache, the Hopi, the Zuni, and the Ute. All of these tribes withhold similar legends like the skinwalker, but none are quite like the Yi Nablushi, a Navajo phrase that translates to, "With it, he goes on all fours." These are the threatening and treacherous versions of skinwalkers, originating from the same path that shamans, medicine men, and other healers of the Navajo take when they are very young. It should be noted that witchcraft in the sense of the Navajo is not necessarily a derogatory term, as witches belonged alongside humans. Witchcraft is not thought of as supernatural as it is thought of in modern storytelling and mythology. Rather, witchcraft can be utilized for either good or bad, and it is up to the user which side they implement in their own studies and practices. It has been said that medicine men in training are taught both the good medicine and the bad medicine by their elders, because to understand one, they must understand the other. Once the student masters the harmful witchcraft, it is then disposed of in favor of helpful witchcraft, which is then used to make the community heal, prosper, and flourish. Of course, not all medicine men decide to stick to the good. There have been reports of healers or witches living most of their lives as true medicine men, only harnessing the powers of evil towards the end, as immortality and existentialism take over one's mind. Some reports state that healers and shamans who become skinwalkers are mostly male. However, the validity of these claims is not proven or represented by any actual demographic. How one actually becomes a skinwalker is unknown. There is no exact process or set of guidelines made available to non-Navajo folk that explain these proceedings. There are those that believe to become a skinwalker, one must make contact with a secret entity within their community, who will then give them an unforgivable quest. These deeds usually revolve around the murder of a fellow tribesman, such as killing a sibling or close relative. Once the irredeemable action has been followed through with, the shape-shifting abilities then form through the person in question. In terms of possession, some accounts report that direct eye contact is the death knell for humans in the presence of skinwalkers. Some say all it takes is for a human to look a skinwalker in the eyes before the witch can possess and control their victim without any limitations. In fact, the eyes of skinwalkers are one of the telltale signs that differentiate them from actual animals walking the earth. Skinwalkers are said to feature yellow or black eyes while in their human form, as if they had eyes of a creature. Then, when the skinwalker transforms into its animal state, the eyes appear more like a human. While tribal members known to practice harmful witchcraft are usually forced away from heavily populated areas and central communities, skinwalkers normally aren't lone wolves in the general sense of the phrase. It has been rumored that skinwalkers stick to the hidden societies that bring them into their dark teachings, coming together to initiate medicine men who seek to practice with the evil spirits. These underground groups are also known to perform ceremonial acts like one might see in the everyday Navajo community, such as feasts, dances, crafting, and storytelling, but from the perspective of the bad witchcraft. Other activities practiced by skinwalkers range from the destruction of property to the creation of plagues, injuring, maiming, and sometimes even murdering along the way, depending on the relationships the skinwalker maintained prior to their transformation. There are also reports of skinwalkers possessing other creatures outside of their own shape-shifting alias. One common animal is the owl, used to harbor messages and commit other acts of their bidding, but under the cloak of the night and away from prying eyes. Not only that, but possession has been said to go as far as skinwalkers reanimating the bodies of dead folk, using them as zombie-like boogeymen to attack whomever crossed them in their waking lives. If one wanted to spot a skinwalker, they might listen closely for odd or startling noises around homes in the remote wilderness or rural backdrops. These events include the knocking and breaking of windows or other glass objects, pounding on walls and facades, and footsteps or paw patterns on the roof of a house. Those who have claimed to see a skinwalker in the dead of night report of humanoid-like creatures peering in through uncovered windows, their tiny human eyes looking into their very soul. Others have said they've spotted skinwalkers on quiet roads or empty highways, sitting off to the side and waiting to leap in front of an oncoming car to cause an accident. These skinwalkers represent more of the trickster type of characters seen throughout Navajo mythology, rather than the spiteful, vengeful, hell-bent figures often correlated with skinwalkers. In other words, not all skinwalkers are pure killers out for blood. In fact, some skinwalkers only attack others when in need of certain artifacts or resources for their own harmful witchcraft, unobtainable in their everyday human form. These skinwalkers also differ from the type that are said to claim victims as a way to maintain their eternal life. The prevalence of skinwalkers has been maintained throughout centuries of Navajo life as being the cause and influence over many tragedies and hardships suffered by the Navajo people. These include famines and food shortages, unexplained deaths of prominent community members, missing and murdered livestock, and festive ceremonies interrupted by storms or other natural disasters. One of the most infamous theories of widespread damage brought forth by skinwalkers came in 1864. Beginning with the Bear Springs Treaty of 1846 and continuing into Kit Carson's belligerent campaign through New Mexico in 1863, the United States Army decided to force the Navajo people from their ancestral lands and deport them to Fort Sumner, New Mexico, where they would live within the Bosque Redondo Reservation. By January of 1864, most of the major bands within the Navajo tribe surrendered to the U.S. military and started their journey east towards the reservation. This event was eventually referred to as the Long Walk of the Navajo. The Long Walk saw 53 separate marches of over 10,000 people drudge through the arid New Mexico deserts before arriving at Bosque Redondo. During their 4 years there, the Navajo encountered extreme drops in quality of life, such as failed agriculture and dying crops, undrinkable water, ethnic cleansing, and the uncontrolled spreading of disease. Not only had 200 Navajo people already died during the Long Walk, but many more suffered and ultimately perished as a result of the poor conditions of the newfound reservation. Many of the Navajo forced to comply believed their gods had forsaken them, abandoning them with barely anything to survive. However, reports say that a selection of the displaced tribesmen sought escape through witchcraft, choosing to become skinwalkers if for nothing else than as an escape from the horrifying conditions that the white settlers had beset on them. In 1868, the U.S. government callously recognized their mistake in enforcing the Long Walk and allowed the Navajo people to leave Bosque Redondo and return to the Four Corners region in the Southwest Territory. The Navajo happily obliged and marched back to their ancestral homeland, but not without some of their trials and terrors following them as well. While overall the quality of life was better when compared to the life on the reservation, some tribesmen blamed their pain and experiences on an uptick in witchcraft and the skinwalkers that supposedly ran about. The tipping point in the Navajo's fears and frustrations came after the discovery of objects normally associated with witchcraft, found wrapped with copies of the Treaty of Bosque Redondo. By this point, nearly 10 years had passed since the end of the Long Walk, but tensions remained between the suspicious and the suspects. Thus, in 1878, the Navajo endured what is referred to as the Navajo Witch Purge. The purge saw around 40 medicine men suspected of performing harmful witchcraft hunted and killed by other warriors, in an attempt to curb the evil plaguing the tribe in the days since returning to their homeland. Fast forward 150 years, and these anxieties still exist in the southwest region of the United States amongst Navajos and other Native American tribes. These myths are most often told in the Four Corners of America, located in the northwest tip of New Mexico, the northeast tip of Arizona, the southeast tip of Utah, and the southwest tip of Colorado. The overall feelings towards suspected skinwalkers and witchcraft in general also remains the same. Navajo healers, shamans, and medicine men practice healthy spiritualism each and every day to combat the potential for evil and wickedness that exists in medicine, even the good side. As a final warning regarding the potential dangers of skinwalkers, folks have reported these creatures deft in witchcraft as being incredibly difficult to find, let alone capture or kill. They say a skinwalker can only be eliminated through the help of a wise, experienced shaman who has mastered the art of witchcraft of both the good and the evil. This powerful medicine will turn a skinwalker in on itself, its witchcraft rendered useless. Other reports declare a skinwalker can be killed in its animalistic form only if it is shot in the head with bullets that have been coated in white ash. As mentioned before, these claims are based on outsider reports of the skinwalker legend. However, only the true mythology and spiritualism of their origins can be heard and understood by the Navajo people, who choose to keep this taboo subject hidden and request that from here on forth, we do the same. Who knows who or what might be out there listening?